Now that Jordan Peterson, our favorite clinical psychologist and one of our favorite Canadians, is back from the brink of death, we can finally discuss his brief yet thought-provoking comparison between Christianity and Islam. During the Q&A session following one of his lectures on the psychological significance of Bible stories, someone asked Dr. Peterson why he thinks Islam is so radically different from Christianity when the Quran contains so many of the same stories as the Bible.
So my question is, at the level of psychological significance of these stories, at the level of mythology and archetype, how is Islam so different from the Judeo-Christian tradition? Because Adam, Eve, Havva, Satan, Shaitan, so on and so forth, everything from the fall to the flood. Tonight you said that the moral presuppositions of a culture are instantiated in its stories. I see a lot of the same stories. So current global affairs aside, I'm asking at the deepest levels, how different are these stories and the moral presuppositions?
Dr. Peterson draws attention to two important differences between Christianity and Islam.
And so one is what I see as the failure to separate church from state. And that's a problem. Now, it may not be a problem as such, but it's certainly a problem in relationship to the relation between Islam and the West, because we separate church from state. Now, there's fundamentalists in the United States, Christian fundamentalists, who think that that separation is a mistake. So it's not only an idea that's rooted in Islam that those should be united. But it's definitely a problem with regards to our coexistence, because that's a fundamentally different presumption.
The separation of church and state. The church doesn't control the state, and the state doesn't control the church. There have obviously been times in the history of Christianity when there was no separation of church and state, but those times were a later development in Christianity. Jesus said, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." We can have dual obligations, obligations to the state and obligations to God. For 3 centuries, it never occurred to Christians that they should be controlling world governments. That changed when the Roman emperors adopted Christianity in the 4th century, because the Roman emperors had a Roman Empire kind of way of doing things. The church, which up until then had been focused on forgiveness and love and salvation, merged with an empire focused on power and order and crushing all opposition. Not surprisingly, the merger resulted in a church that all too often focused on power and on crushing all opposition. But again, this was a later development. The point here is that controlling the government isn't built into Christianity. Christians might control governments. Governments might adopt Christianity, but it's not part of the religion. In Islam, political control is built into the religion. Muhammad, the leader of the religion, was also head of state. His successor, Abu Bakr, was the leader of the religion and head of state. His successor, Umar, was the leader of the religion and head of state. His successor, Uthman, was the leader of the religion and head of state. Muhammad was not simply a prophet proclaiming his religion. He seized political power, and his revelations supposedly gave him the authority to do so. Muhammad said that he had been commanded to fight people until they convert to Islam. He claimed that Allah had revealed to him that his empire would continue to expand until the entire world was under the control of Islam. So political power is not something that was added to Islam centuries after it was founded. The quest for political power is foundational to the religion, and so there will always be a struggle between Islam and anyone who wants to resist Islam's quest for political power. Hence, Jordan Peterson is absolutely correct to notice an important difference here. But he sees another one.
Problem number 2 for me, and again, this may be a consequence of my ignorance, which I'm trying to rectify. Muhammad was a warlord. And I don't know what to do about that fact. Like, one thing you can say about Christ, hypothetically, let's say, I'm not talking about a historical reality necessarily, although I'm not denying it either, is that of all the things he was, Warlord was definitely not one of them. And I don't know what to do about that. And so I don't know how to reconcile that.
Muhammad was a warlord. Jesus wasn't. Muhammad got what he wanted, women and wealth, by seizing them through violence carried out by the soldiers he commanded. In the introduction to chapter 88 of Sahih al-Bukhari, Muhammad declared, "My livelihood is under the shade of my spear, and he who disobeys my orders will be humiliated by paying jizya." In Sahih al-Bukhari 2977, Muhammad said, "I have been made victorious with terror." These are the words of a warlord. By contrast, in Matthew 5:5, Jesus says, "Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth." In 5:7, he says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy." In 5:9, he says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." Later, in the same chapter, he commands his followers, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." In John 18:36, Jesus is being questioned by Pontius Pilate, who wants to know what Jesus did to upset people so much that they'd want him crucified. Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm." These are not the words of a warlord. Why is this relevant? Well, Christians are supposed to strive to be more Christ-like. Muslims are supposed to strive to be more Muhammad-like. Many Christians obviously do a poor job of imitating Jesus, just as many Muslims obviously do a poor job of imitating Muhammad. But the target you aim at is going to affect the direction you go, which is why societies influenced by Christianity are strikingly different from societies influenced by Islam. Hats off to Jordan Peterson for being one of the only Canadian academics with both the common sense to spot the difference between Christianity and Islam and the courage to publicly acknowledge that difference. As Christians strive to imitate Jesus and Muslims strive to imitate Muhammad, may Canadian academics strive to imitate Dr. Peterson.